So, oh my, come on. Okay, not now I can feel it. So probably just to repeat the most important information, thank you for joining the session. So really appreciate this. My name is Alexey. I'm Senior Product Manager for SAS Studio. SAS Studio is the product that we're going to talk about today as part of this session. In particular, we will be talking about Copilot capabilities in SAS Studio and how these Copilot capabilities can actually increase productivity of data engineers, data scientists, but basically all of you guys who work in SAS Studio. So I'll try to show you many interesting use cases where using these Copilot capabilities that we plan to introduce soon can be very helpful and useful for your work. So this is the purpose of our session. Just before we jump into the session, so just a quick note in case you see here something which is called like Data and AI Studio, right? So this is still the same SAS Studio on VIA 4 that probably many of you have been already working in. It's just that we are doing rebrand of this product in June this year. So SAS Studio, so this previous name will be changed to SAS Data and AI Studio. There was probably a little bit more information about this provided by a few of my colleagues earlier today. But in short, I would say that we are doing this rebrand to make sure that we can better reflect growing capabilities of the product. So we've already been adding quite a few interesting machine learning AI capabilities in the product. Now we will have Copilot. So this rebrand is all in support of this clear reflection of the product purpose. So same SAS Studio, same capabilities, no changes, right? So, but just the name changes, it will be SAS Data and AI Studio. Now, let's take a look at our agenda. In the very beginning, I'll just do a brief announcement about our release plans. I will also highlight that what capabilities we are going to include in the initial release and what capabilities will come later, so come later this year. And then as part of the second and the third bullet points here, we will start itemizing these Copilot capabilities and we'll be reviewing them in more details. We will look at code assistant capabilities and flow assistant capabilities, which is sort of our roadmap for this year. And then the last point in our agenda will be live Q&A. So that's the plan. Let's get just straight to the point. I'm super excited to announce that we will be shipping Copilot capabilities in SAS Studio in June this year. So as part of our 2026-06 stable release, if you upgrade to this release, so you will get Copilot capabilities. In terms of the concrete dates, yeah, this is just June 18th. So I'm really excited about this. So we've met with many of you last year on Innovate. So at that time, so we've been just, well, starting with our initial plans for Copilot. Now, just like 1 year later, so we are going to ship these capabilities in the product, so which is awesome. And now, we will, of course, have our first release in 2026-06, as I said. But let's take a look at what will be included in this first release and then what comes next. So in terms of the first release, we will support documentation Q&A as part of Copilot and code assistant for SAS and for Python program. In terms of code assistant for SAS for Python program, we are going to review all of this in much more detail today as part of this session. We are not going to take a look at documentation Q&A, so this is why I'll just make a quick pause here and explain what this documentation Q&A means. Basically, documentation Q&A, this is a way to query SAS documentation through chatbot experience in Copilot within SAS Studio. The main purpose of this capability is that you don't really need to leave the product, so to go outside of SAS Studio if you would like to get some information, some help about how to achieve certain goal in the product, how to schedule Python program, how to run something in the background and save your output in some other location. So basically any question that you, how to change the font of your, well, code editor, right, anything. So all of this you will be able just to query through chatbot pen in Copilot, and it will provide a very nice written response, like step-by-step guide, how you can actually achieve the goal. So this is documentation Q&A capability. Code Assistant, we're going to talk about this later. And then what comes next, right? So later, after 2026-06 release, and well, I'm probably not going to announce concrete dates as of today, but later this year, we are going to introduce more capabilities in Copilot. Recently, in April in 2026-04, stable release with edit support of R in SAS Studio, R language. We support dedicated code editor, and we support R code step in flows. So we would like to extend Copilot capabilities for R as well. So this is the first item in our roadmap. And then one of the very important areas that we will continue working on is Flow Assistant, right? So Flow Assistant, this is about the capabilities that can help you to better create new flows, to refine and improve existing flows. And for Flow Assistant, we will be working on new steps generation, step description generation, and flow documentation. And there will be, of course, more Copilot capabilities that we will be developing further. As part of this session today, so we are going to take a look at two capabilities, so Code Assistant for SAS for Python program that we will include in the initial release, and I'm also going to show you like a sneak peek of Flow Assistant capabilities. All of these three capabilities, I'll show you how they will be working on the demo. So that's the plan for today, Code Assistant, Flow Assistant. Now, well, let's start with Code Assistant functionality. Before we will dive into the demo, I want to have just a few slides to provide you with a quick overview, how this will look like, so what kind of capabilities you can expect. And this is all for SAS and for Python code. First of all, well, what Code Assistant capabilities are, right? So it's basically a set of actions that allow you to create new code, to generate new code based on your natural language prompt, so based on the goal that you would like to achieve, and also a set of actions that help you to work with the existing code, to refine the code, to explain the code, comment the code, and so on. So if you are familiar with this kind of modern, popular interfaces like GitHub, Copilot, Claude, or something, or some others, right? So this will be very similar to this. So this will be exactly kind of the same Code Assistant capabilities. The important point here is that we bring these capabilities within SAS Studio, so they will be available in the product. We already provide in SAS Studio first-class experience for programming, right? So we support SAS, we support Python, we support R, and therefore we would like to bring these Code Assistant capabilities in the product into this code editor so that you have them at hand, right? So you don't need to jump to other interfaces if you would like to get some help from Copilot, so you will get it within SAS Studio. We will support SAS and Python language in our first release in 2026-06. And then in terms of the actions, so for the new code, we will support probably the most important one, generate action, which allows you to create new code. So you just provide a prompt, and Copilot will generate the code for you. There will be also an action that allows you to create a few examples of code. So if you want to get started with, well, a few examples in Python, R, SAS, so whatever language you need. And then the set of actions for existing code, right? So we will support the ability to add comments to the code, explain the code, find problems or issues in the code, also optimize this in certain ways, format the code better, and finally refine this. Refine the code. So for example, if you would like to rename a variable to another name, right? So this is also something what Copilot will be able to do. In total, 7 actions that we will support in the initial release. In terms of the user experience, right? Copilot capabilities will be available in a couple of different ways. You will be able to use them inline in your code editor and through the chatbot pane. On this slide, we can take a look at how you can use them inline. If we take a look at the left-hand side screenshot here, then you will be able to invoke Copilot in a particular place of your program and basically run one of these actions. This is something what will be possible to do for the entire program, so if you want to, or for a selected set of lines. So if you only want to have this for lines from 10 till 15, then this will be possible. And then on the right-hand side, this is what basically represents the outcome of one of these commands. In this particular case, I've been using comment/comment command with an additional modifier. So I've asked Copilot to add a brief comment to each block in my program. And this is something what Copilot did. And then as you are using those, this type of commands, Copilot will highlight the changes. So in red, it will highlight the previous state of your program. And in green, it will show you new state of the program so that you can compare the changes. And then if you feel good about the changes that Copilot proposed, then you can apply the changes, discard the changes so that everything will be dropped, or to regenerate the response from Copilot. So for example, just in case you don't like these comments for any reason, you will be able to regenerate the response. Typically, well, you would probably opt for applying the changes, and then all the changes will be available in the code editor, so your new program state will be exactly as the one that is shown here in green. This is inline experience. But also, it will be possible to use Copilot through the chatbot pane. Chatbot pane, so this is a standard chatbot pane on the right-hand side, so probably similar to many Copilots, and you've probably also seen this across other products in VIA. But for example, if you would like to perform exactly the same action, so if you would like to comment your code, then you will be able to provide a similar prompt in chatbot pane, like in this case, add one, well, extensive comment for a particular block of the program. And Copilot will respond you also in this chatbot pane. So it won't apply the changes necessarily in the code editor, so it will just provide the response in the chatbot pane. And then, as you can see here, so there were like a few lines of comments added. And now, well, after you review these comments, you can then decide what you want to do. There will be a few actions, so which you just kind of can see underneath this block of code in the chatbot pane, and one of those, well, there will be 3 different actions, but one of those will just allow you to embed the proposed changes into the program, and so your program will, again, look just as Copilot suggested. So therefore, there will be 2 types of 2 ways of using Copilot inline, so if this is something what better works for your use case, or for example, through the chatbot pane. So in chatbot pane, well, usually Copilot would probably respond you with some additional information, so kind of a few suggestions that, well, it can have for your code. So, well, depending on your use case, so you can just use one method or another. So now, enough the slides. Let's take a look at real examples. In the first demo, so we're going to see 3 different examples how you can use Copilot. We will use Copilot to format the code and refine the code for such program, and we will use Copilot to explain a block of code in Python program. So 3 different actions. Let's get started. So I'm actually using the videos for this demo, but if you would like to see some of this real, I'm on Data and AI Studio booth in Innovation Hub, so please just feel free to come by anytime. But now let's get started. So let's do formatting. So we see a block of code with ProcSQL which could probably look a bit better, right? So we have create statement, select, from statement, like all in the same line. And we could ask Copilot to format this code, and Copilot suggested the changes, so now the block is formatted way better. Let's apply refine command to the first 2 data step blocks. Let's ask Copilot to rename x variable to y variable in this case. Again, Copilot responds with proposed changes in green. All look good, so we've got our y variable. We can move on. The next example, so we just see here, well, Python program which we probably haven't seen before. We are not quite sure about, so what exactly this 2 for loops do in this program, right? So let's ask Copilot to do it. I've just asked it to explain, and Copilot is going to respond, in this case, in the chatbot pane, because I've asked it to explain the code, right? So I don't need to see this information in the program. So Copilot is smart enough to provide me with this information in the chatbot pane. It provides a brief summary of the code, and then it goes into all details, right? So it explains basically every line, every important statement, and also it provides, well, additional notes and suggestions how we could possibly improve efficiency of this program. So this should not necessarily be exactly like that. So if you would like Copilot just to provide a little bit shorter summary, then in Chatbot Pen or as part of your inline command, you can just say, well, explain this code to me in, well, 2 sentences. And then Copilot will provide you with this information, right? So we don't always want this to be kind of chatty, right? This is also a possibility. This is like an additional modifier that you can add again to the command inline or as part of the Chatbot Pen. So these are 3 actions for Code Assistant that we've seen now. And then the next action, so which is probably one of my favorite ones, is the ability to generate new code. So we often see the tasks, right, and the need to do something for which we probably would like to write a program, but, well, it's always not easy to start just from scratch, right, to write the code ourselves. This is what Copilot can help us with. So for this one, let's consider some kind of realistic example. Let's say we have a table which contains information about different cars and prices of these cars. And these prices are now in dollars. So the last column in this table is car price USD, so again, information in dollars. We would like to convert this to euros, and we would like kind of to have a program for this so that we can repeat this process as we need. I'm going to use Python for this, and I'm not going to write the program myself, right? So I would like Copilot to do it for me. So I'm putting a quick prompt here. So Copilot, please use the Frankfurter API, so just one of the public API services that I'm aware of that provides kind of this conversion of USD to euros. And then, yeah, I'm just adding a couple of additional notes here, like round the conversion, right? So we're not interested about like decimals, so we would like to have integer. And Copilot generates the code. So it not only generates the code, right? So it also provides the explanation. So what is the purpose of this code, right? So how Copilot organized this code. It provides the preview of the code, right? Also in the Chatbot Pen, so we can take a quick look. And then, so as soon as we are kind of, well, at the first glance, we are kind of fine with these changes, we can apply the changes in the code editor, so just by clicking a button. So just look how much Copilot did work for us in this case. So it added the Accurate API endpoint with proper parameters. It's also added try except block in the program. It created a method for conversion, and it also used the proper input and outputs. So all of this like in 20, 30 seconds, but we have the whole program which does the conversion. Now, all I need to do is just to swap input, output of this program with actual tables name, the table names that I have, and to run the program. So it looks like that the program was working well. We can take a look at the output. And now we have a new column in our table with information about car prices in euros. So all of that, I mean, we did like probably in 1 minute. So we really saved lots of our valuable time for writing this program ourselves. And again, well, Copilot also provided us with some additional information about, well, what we could probably improve in this program in the future, so some kind of key points. This is Copilot for code generation. I've showed this in a demo using Python, and as I said, so this also will be supported for SAS program, for SAS language. So for those of you who are kind of used to SAS language, this will also be supported, so there are like no changes, no exceptions there. Great, so this is our Code Assistant capabilities. And now let's move on to the next section, which is Flow Assistant. I guess before we get started with this section, so I just wanted to make one important note here is that if we look at Code Assistant capabilities, right, so I think it's already just undoubtedly clear how Code Assistant capabilities can be useful, right? So just in a variety of different applications, generating new code, refining existing code. So I'm sure that many of you are using, well, other tools right now to help you with writing the code. So it's clear, right, that Code Assistant capabilities should just be there, right? So that's like a must-have. But then kind of the next level, right, is Copilot capabilities for artifacts that you would usually build using no/flow code utilities. So this can be visual data pipelines, point-and-click pipelines in Studio. This can be visual analytics report, anything else, right? But now we are talking about using Copilot for something for what we've been using previously, UIs, right? Point-and-click designers. And in these cases, and this is the kind of the important point that I would like to convey here, is that in this area, so this is the area where you would probably need to be a little bit more careful when you would like to use Copilot versus doing something yourself in one of our point-and-click designers, right? Because there are still plenty of actions that you can just achieve by using our standard UIs. So you don't always need Copilot. So if you would like to do a quick filter for your table, right? So you can just drag a step on the canvas and do the filter, and you will do faster than Copilot. But still, there are plenty of interesting use cases where Copilot can save you just huge amount of time on doing these actions. And these are the use cases where you would like for sure to use Copilot. And this is the cases that I am kind of trying to find basically every day as part of our product designs, right? So that we have something for you, which is not just, well, used, let's say, for fun, right? So, but something which is really useful, right? So what can help you to achieve certain tasks. And this is kind of the message that I will keep probably saying while we are talking about Flow Assistant. So just remember that there are actions for like flows, right, that you probably want to do yourself, but there are actions where Copilot can be extremely helpful. So very similar to Code Assistant capabilities, so Flow Assistant, this is also a set of actions that can help you to create new flows in SAS Studio and can also refine, improve, enhance existing flows. Probably just one minor point, I'm pretty sure that many of you have been using Studio before, right? So, but just in case we have someone who's kind of new to the product, so flow in Studio, so the concept of the flow, right? So this is our data pipeline. So basically a sequence of transformations that allows you to see how data goes from the very source to the very target, and this is something what you can just configure in point-and-click designer. So this is what we call flows, right? This is basically data pipeline, so if we speak like industry terms. Now, well, set of actions, creating new flows, improving or enhancing existing flows. Let's just dive straight to the demos. First, I wanted to show you how you can use our Copilot for creating new steps in flows, right? So if you would like to build a new flow from scratch using Copilot. Before we dive to the demo, just a quick overview about what we are going to do. So the demo will probably take 5-6 minutes or something. So we probably need to get an idea about what exactly we're going to do. Let's say we have an input with a couple of raw tables that have information about customer churn. So we have a table with basic customer information, and we have a table with customer transactions. Our purpose is to prepare this data for analysis, for example, for a data scientist. But there are 3 important things that we should do as part of this process. So first, we need to follow our DWH standards, and we want to keep all columns in lowercase. Second, we would like to account for personal data protection. So we would like to mask certain attributes as part of this and to make sure that that personal information will not be exposed. And finally, let's imagine that we have a business department who sent us in whatever form a set of business rules for calculating risk category of a customer. But there will be some analysis done on this table later, but business department just asked us to calculate this rating immediately based on a specific set of rules. That's our task. Now, let's get started with the demo. So the first action that I'm going to do here is creating a new flow. We want this process to be repeatable, right? So, and we want this process to be clear for other users, so that's the reason why we create a flow here, right? We're not going to write the program. The first action that I'm doing here is manual. I just went to our libraries connection and put a table on the canvas. So this is the first table that contains information about customer data. So we have plenty of information here, like customer ID, their marital status, their income, emails, which would be important to take into account for personal data protection. But for now, let's take a look that all columns in this table are in different cases. So we have uppercase, we have camel case with underscore, so we have lowercase somewhere. Now, let me ask Copilot to rename all these columns in lowercase. So I'm putting a quick prompt here in the chatbot pane, and now this is something that I'm not doing manually. This is what Copilot does for me. Copilot automatically generates a transformation, which we call manage columns step, with a meaningful name, by the way, and puts this on the canvas, connects this to our input table, and provides me with the information what this transformation does. Now we can take a quick look here. All columns have been renamed to lowercase. If you've been working with this before, you can imagine how tedious and how much time it can take to do it manually yourself, just to rename every column to a particular case in here. In addition, I've also asked Copilot to recode the text information, kind of the iteration flag from text to numeric. Copilot did this for me. The transformation is accurate and correct. I can run this, and now we have our first step completed. So now we are compliant with our DWH rules. Copilot, again, also added a meaningful name for the transformation. So this is very helpful. And again, it took just about like 1 minute, maybe less. If we would do it ourselves, it would take quite some time. But the next step, right, that I was talking about, let's account for data privacy. I would like to mask customer email, the mailbox attribute, and I would also like to create age bins, right? So this is one of the popular techniques for sort of anonymizing personal information like customer age. Copilot basically executes the request that I've made. It tells me that there will be a couple of steps added, mask data and record ranges step on the canvas so that you can see. And the steps are now also in complete configuration. We can take a look first at mask data step. This is where Copilot selected the right algorithm for us, mask email mailbox. Very nice. So we can run this step. So we could probably do this step ourselves, but well, if we are not sure which algorithm to use, so it could still be useful for saving time. But for recording age ranges, this is where it was really helpful to use Copilot, because otherwise we would need to write all these rules ourselves in the product, in the UI, right? So we would need to type all these ranges to assign variables and so on. Instead, so I've just put a kind of, it took me maybe 1 minute to write the prompt, but Copilot did all of this tedious and exhausting work for me. Now, well, we have the second task complete. We've accounted for data privacy regulation. And finally, let's calculate this risk category that I was talking about. First, I'm just going to bring a new table on the canvas here, so with information about customer transactions. So, yeah, right now. This is the step that I'm going to do manually again. So I could ask Copilot to add this table from a library, so I could type a prompt in here, but, well, it's faster for me to do it this way, right? So this is information about customer transactions with lots of different information, like amount of transactions and so on. And this is where it goes back to the Copilot. Now I'm going to ask Copilot to join both of these tables and to calculate the risk category. If you take a closer look, so we calculate 3 different risk categories like high, medium, low, and so on. And just imagine for a second that you've got exactly these rules from your business department exactly in this raw way, right? So basically your business department asks you to calculate this, right? And they just provide this in the plain text. So you would need to convert this into something like what would work in the product. But this is something what Copilot can do for you. So as you can see here, Copilot first did the join, but now like one of the most interesting parts for us here is that Copilot also created a new column for calculating this category, risk category, right there. And in this case, this kind of case when statement, so this is quite bigger than what we saw previously. Again, it would take quite some time for you just to write this manually to kind of understand first the business rules that you were provided and then convert them into the working case when statement. Copilot did this for us, so which is awesome. And then also Copilot added the final output table here on the canvas. Now we can take a look at the results. And as you can see here, so we have a new table. So with columns that come from the first table in lowercase, with mailboxes masked with customer age bin and with customer risk category. And all of that we did, again, I think the video kind of takes 5 or 6 minutes, right? If we would try to do it ourselves, right, to rename the columns, to create case when statements in multiple cases, to record the ranges, in my kind of estimation, so that I would do here, I'd say like, maybe if I would do it manually, it would take me like 3 times longer, approximately maybe 15 up to 20 minutes to do it just manually to create this type of flow. With Copilot, we did it like 3 times faster. This is Copilot capability that we plan to have for creating new flows. And next, let's take a look at a couple of other cases. The next one would be about creating an explanation of the existing flow. Let's say we have a flow which we don't really know nothing about. So probably a colleague sent this flow to us, or we were just asked to review it. So completely different flow. And you can see there are many things here, like joins, some Python things, merging data eventually, doing scatter plot. So plenty of things. Let's just ask Copilot to explain this flow to us briefly, so that before we start working with this, we can at least understand what is this used for. This is what I'm doing here. So just a very simple prompt, so not going to keep it complex. And Copilot does the whole explanation for me, so it starts generating the response. We first can see the summary of the flow purpose, so that this is used for analyzing road segments in NC to understand the relationship between traffic, proximities to the cities, and so on. So we can already get the idea of what is this actually for. Then Copilot summarizes key inputs and key outputs of this program. So Snowflake table, Python program, and then also the output in the Snowflake. And then it also provides additional information about, well, some suggestions for PII, data lineage, and so on. And now we have a good impression about our flow. We know how we can use this, and we know how we can improve this flow further. This is a capability of flow explanation. We also consider saving this whole information so that Copilots provide as an explanation as part of the flow, so that this documentation can be always available in the flow. So if you have plenty of flows, this can be a pretty interesting way to document this. And finally, so the last case where I think Copilot can also provide quite a lot of additional value is generating a description for a particular step in a flow, right? Let's take a look here. We're going to take one of the steps, so we will stay with the same flow exactly, right? So we're going to take one of the steps, and it's not very complex, right? So, but there is still like one field which is being calculated. So there are some columns that are selected, some columns are not. Now let me ask Copilot to generate a description for this node that a colleague of mine who will be working with this flow later can easily understand why I've created this step in the flow. And this is what Copilot can provide. So pretty good description. So it explains how a particular column is calculated. So we deduct one column from another. And then if you would like to have this description different, you can regenerate. If you would like to write this yourself, you can discard. And well, if this looks good, you can just apply the changes, and they will be in the flow. They will be saved in the flow. So saving quite some time on documentation. So just imagine you've created a complex joint transformation with multiple calculations, and you don't really want to write the documentation yourself. So Copilot can just do it for you, and you save quite a few minutes on that. So this is the example of how Copilot can help with generating a description for a particular step. That's pretty much everything about the demos. Right now, let's just have a quick summary. In the first release, in 2026-06, we will be shipping three different Copilot capabilities: documentation, Q&A, code assistant for SAS, for Python program. So that's the first release. And then later on, we will be working on code assistant for R, for flow assistant, and there will be more functionalities. Today, we've seen a few demos for code assistant for different languages, for SAS, for Python, and we've also seen like a sneak peek of flow assistant capabilities. So I hope that this is helpful kind of to give you like an early idea about what we are going to have later for flow assistant. With this said, I guess we are good in terms of timing. Thank you so much for your attention. I really hope it was useful. I guess I'll just repeat myself. If you are interested to discuss this in more detail, we are still here today on Data and AI Studio booth. Tomorrow, the same. Please feel free to come by if you would like to kind of talk more about this. But now I guess, yeah, that's just the perfect time for questions. And I guess, Lauren, are you going to kind of moderate this, or should I? So yeah, thank you guys for your attention.
Can Copilot read SAS datasets and answer questions?
So Copilot only takes metadata about datasets like column names, column attributes, but it doesn't take your data, the actual data that you have in table. So we do not pass any kind of customer data to the Copilot. So this is all to make sure that we kind of can ensure privacy, right? So this is the important thing. Of course, if you do something like, if we take Code Assistant capabilities and you say that, well, I have a table with this name and you specify a real name of the table, then yeah, this will be passed to Copilot. But of course, if you kind of do it accurately, right? So if you do not pass your personal data, of course, this will not be handed over to Copilot. Yeah.
Do you have an estimated date when the Flow Assistant will be available?
I would say that's a great question. I'm sure everyone is interested. So I probably cannot say right now like a definitive date, so when we can have it. But our plan is to make this available by the end of the year, by the end of this year. So there is still kind of substantial work that we have to do for this, but we are quite optimistic that by the end of the year, we could also have Flow Assistant capabilities.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Will Copilot be available in SAS Viya for learners, the free version for academics?
Oh, that's a great question that I probably cannot answer, but I'll make sure to check for you. So we plan to enable Copilot in all standard Viya offerings, but for learning, I'm just not sure. So I'll need to see this information probably with one of our kind of colleagues who is responsible for packaging and pricing. So that's a great question. That's a great question. Thank you.
Can you use it across multiple flows at one time, or is it limited to just the flow that you have open?
So in that kind of first release that we plan for Flow Assistant, this would be flow specific, like flow centric. Yeah, so just kind of for one flow. But we see kind of multiple cases, many interesting cases when this can be useful for multiple as well. For example, if you would like to do some refactoring of multiple flows after migration, so one of the kind of interesting cases. So this is where it could be, I think, useful to use it for multiple. So definitely a good thing to consider for kind of, yeah, for the next stages. But just like for now, the plan is to have it for one flow. But that's, I totally agree. That's a great case to have it for multiple as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Is there any plans to have Copilot be able to be triggered during like batch processes? So if, for example, you're running a analysis and you're generating reports that go out on email, maybe allowing like proc print statements or something to generate whatever Copilot analyzed as that data set and put it in like a proc print summary that goes out to the readers of those reports?
Okay, so that's an interesting one. But I mean, so I'm just curious. So like, I mean, if you do it for reporting, right? So why wouldn't you include proc print statements at like in the earlier stage, right? So before you can execute this in batch or before you schedule. So why would you probably want kind of Copilot to do it for you later? So why wouldn't you include this in the original artifact like SAS programmer?
My thought would be more as like a dynamic output from the program run. So depending on how the data set that's generated is output, it might generate a different summary of what
I
that.
see. So basically you would kind of, if you have multiple data sets, right, so you kind of would like to have sort of dynamic code.
Yeah,
that-
like dynamic analysis done by Copilot that can get output from like proc print or something like that.
So honestly, I think we haven't thought about this case in particular. So, but yeah, I think this might be interesting. So I would still kind of, I mean, well, at least kind of from my point of view, I would still probably see if this would be possible to include this logic like in some earlier stages, right? Even though, I mean, if you don't want to embed this like in every program, so maybe to have some like wrapper program after all runs, right? So and kind of to basically gather, fetch the output of all your programs, right, and then output this. So just to make sure like that you have an artifact that does it for you, so that you can always see why this exact report was generated, right? So that this is something what doesn't just happen implicitly somehow behind the scenes, but that you just know what kind of script or program basically created this output. So I would probably still consider this as an option, but in general, yeah, why not? So I think this can be also kind of an interesting case for Copilot.
Thanks. And the other question I had is, you have like the ability to do summaries of code, right, that have been written or that you're writing a program, you can ask it to put comments in. Is there going to be a plan to have a way to go across, because we have thousands of SAS programs, right? So if we wanted to apply comments from Copilot or formatting from Copilot, is there going to be a way to do it to everything?
Yeah, I think this is very similar to flows, right? So just to do it in batch for multiple programs flows. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a very valuable case. So, and I think this is something what kind of can be very useful for Copilot. So I think again, kind of for now, we just like plan this to be program flow centric, but that's a great use case to kind of to be able to apply this in batch as well. So that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm noting these cases for both for flows, for programs. I mean, that's a very good idea. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think we have time for like one more, and then you're going to have to find Alexei in the hub.
So and if I have infrastructure like 1,000 users are using and they're using the Copilot, so as using that Copilot, does it make can store all the refining the tuning of all the prompts?
That's a good one. So we currently do not keep history of prompts. So there is still like a mechanism that kind of ensures that like the history is taken into account, but we do not save prompts currently. But I think this is also it's an interesting case to consider in a sense that you can basically have a history of like exact prompts that you put in there so that you can come back and review, yeah. So not currently, but I think it's a good case. Yeah.
And can you use to redefine any business use cases to how to join the tables and all that kind of metadata repository where you can store and can use that as for prompting any kind of doing?
Yeah. I mean, if you do not like the kind of current output of Copilot, yeah, you can definitely just ask it to regenerate, so probably to refine the prompt, and then yeah, you kind of run this prompt again. Yeah, you can refine this as you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Awesome questions. Thank you, guys. Then, yeah, I mean, you can clap. Thank you so much. Last thing, I guess, here, right? So we are done with SAS Studio Copilot, but well, I still try to be a good colleague. There will be another session about Copilot for data governance tomorrow in this nice Grapevine Ballroom B. So a colleague of mine, Vijaya, so she will be presenting about Copilot capabilities within data governance. So some of you probably know information catalog, but this will be data governance. So she will be presenting a few interesting cases how you can use Copilot for data governance. So if you'd like to continue, keeping an eye on different Copilots within our data management portfolio, so consider joining this session. So that would be great. And now that's everything. Thank you, guys.